Here we go. Welcome, Will. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah, very good guy.
Very good. Thank you very much for joining us on today's Blue Earth podcast episode. To kick it all off, it would be brilliant if you could just give me a super quick introduction into Will Boex. Just briefly touch upon what Flexi-Hex is and maybe give a bit of a flavour as to where you are.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Will Boex, co-founder and CEO of Flexi-Hex. And Flexi-Hex is a protective packaging product to replace single-use plastics and foams. And we've been trading since 2018 and are gaining more and more traction as the years go on.
Good stuff. And where are you calling in from today?
So dialing in from our head office, which is pleasantly in Porthleven in Cornwall. So it's a little bit of a trip to London, but it's a nice place to be and quite nice in the summertime as well.
Brilliant. Well, before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of exactly what Flexi-Hex does and everything that you've achieved today, I'm quite keen to kind of dig into the origin story. I do know that you mentioned it there. You're a co-founder and you founded it with your twin brother, and I'd just love to know kind of what was the inspiration that kind of created Flexi-Hex? Where did the idea come from, and then how did you and your brother sort of come together into developing it?
Yeah. So I've got a twin brother, Sam. He's probably the creative one. We're actually mirror twins, so I'm probably the more organised one, and Sam sort of heads up the creative one. So we're quite a good sort of business duo. And before starting Flexi-Hex, we actually ran a design agency together doing sort of commercial interiors and product design. So I suppose we've always been interested in sort of how things work. And in 2017, Sam had received a surfboard online. He'd spent his hard-earned money on an expensive item, and it came sort of wrapped in lots and lots of plastic bubble wrap, and it was protected, but it was just a poor consumer experience. So sort of using, I suppose, our sort of creative kind of problem solving kind of background, we started to sort of come up with concepts around potentially creating another system to protect surfboards. And we found this product called honeycomb core, which is readily available and manufactured all over the world. And we ordered some. It arrived in a pallet in our office, and we sort of glued sort of two honeycomb pieces with card rails together. And it created basically an open-ended sleeve. We then sort of placed it over the surfboard, folded over a surfboard, and it just followed all the compound curves. And it was definitely a sort of eureka moment. It's like, this is really interesting. We have basically a fragile item that's just come through the courier network, where we've now created this flexible paper sort of sleeve basically that followed the contours of the surfboard. We sort of wrapped it up and took it out into a car park and jumped up and down on it, and we were impressed by the sort of the early sort of feedback we were getting from this new product we thought about. And from that moment we basically thought, well, maybe we could start a company. And so quite early on we basically moved into starting up a company. We named it Flexi-Hex, and then moved into can we protect this idea? Has anyone thought about this idea before? And obviously you'd think it would have been done before, because it was effectively gluing four bits of paper together. So we, assigned a patent attorney who did a global search, and it started to look positive. And now we have global patents for this really, really simple product. And kind of from the surf industry is quite niche, and we quickly realised there was a number of other market sectors. And I think we had a bottle of wine in the office, or we actually had a few inquiries like, could it do a drinks product or a bottle of wine? And so we quickly developed a slightly smaller sleeve to sort of cover a bottle, and it worked equally as well. We did some drop tests and dropped it from 4 meters onto concrete, and it passed. And yeah, from that point, really, it's kind of snowballed, and we've moved into other market sectors. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey to come up with the concept, and then just to slowly start to gain traction and people's confidence in kind of our product to protect fragile items in transit.
Brilliant. And so it's interesting on where the idea kind of spawned from is that you guys, or Sam, received a surfboard. It's wrapped in bubble wrap, and I guess there's that piece of there's a better way of doing this that doesn't need to use single-use plastic. That's going to be a better customer experience. And do you think that kind of second nature sustainability, where does that come from? Is that your relationship with kind of living on the coast and
Yeah,
seeing the issue firsthand?
absolutely. So we've been avid surfers all our lives, and I think we have been acutely aware of the sort of growth of single-use plastics, unfortunately, in our ocean. When we sort of launched Flexi-Hex as well, Blue Planet 2 was coming on our screens, and I think it also pushed that sort of consumer perspective that yes, if they're receiving a product and it comes wrapped in single-use plastic, like bubble wrap, then you're effectively, you're having a negative effect. That can't be recycled. It's probably going to go in landfill, or worst, it will just, end up in our environment. And so I think that there was definitely a driver to say, can we, use some of our creativity to maybe make a bit of a difference in this world, and
Yeah.
that's where that's where I suppose it all started.
Nice. And so yeah, you've kind of immediately thought of a solution. You've started fiddling around, being the sort of creatives that you are, and at the time you're kind of running an agency. So imagine you had it kind of in your studio. You're fiddling around with the paper, seeing what you can do with it. How quickly and then obviously I think you mentioned the attorney there to kind of see, is there something out there already? Can you start building patents around it? How quickly did you go from, well, there's a solution to there's a product?
Yeah, I mean, we actually went quite quickly. I mean, I think it's interesting as a kind of co-founder, creating a startup is really, naivety is sometimes a little bit of a blessing. So, we were entering into a multi-billion-dollar industry. The packaging industry is huge. It's sort of probably mostly dominated by foams and plastics, or has been, but there's a shift, and there's some great companies, bringing forward really kind of innovative kind of solutions within the sort of fiber based space, companies like Rampack, and there's lots of other kind of solutions out there. But yeah, I suppose that kind of driver to remove single use plastics, and then it's like, I suppose from a startup perspective, as okay, how do we how do we make this? So like working out how to make it, finding suppliers that can make it, and how do we market this, how do we sell it? So it's kind of like we had a sort of, I suppose we've definitely had a number of challenges, but I think the key is to kind of enjoy the kind of enjoy the journey, and
Yeah.
and just have full belief in kind of sort of your vision and mission. Probably one of the like the key elements for us as being building, I suppose, A players within the team, and we've sort of, as every startup probably has, experienced sort of team dynamics and problems with like building that team. But we're now in a really fortunate place where we have a really good team that's kind of shares that same kind of vision and mission to make a difference in the packaging space.
I can imagine it's quite an archaic industry. Packaging's been around for so long. I'm assuming there's some really big players. No one, certainly on those bigger industries, no one particularly likes change. And back in 2017, with Blue Planet coming onto the screens, it takes a little bit of while for people to warm up and understand the problem. So then coming in as a bit of a challenger brand, I'm sure that was a pretty steep learning curve to kind of understand the depth of the problem and how you need to attack it. And I'm sure you've probably had to kind of twist and turn and understand the industry. How's that been, and how has that developed over time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, kind of bringing any new product to market has its challenges, and bringing a product that has never existed before onto the market, I would say is harder. It's a little bit like when Edison brought the light bulb on the market. It's kind of, why do we need a light bulb? We just have a couple more candles. Or Henry Ford was creating a car. It's like, why do we need this? We just have a couple more horses. And it's kind of like there is a sort of an element to kind of like, I don't get the product, I don't really understand it, or kind of like the challenges with kind of overcoming a lot of naysayers. Really, people are very adverse to kind of change, and I think where there is a sort of shift, it takes time. You have the early adopters, but then it takes time for people to build confidence, to understand how kind of, in our case, Flexi-Hex works, and and some of the the benefits that Flexi-Hex can bring to our customers and also the third party warehouses that often use our products.
And just digging into that, because yeah, that is the solutions that stand the best chance of success are just, not you're not just putting it forward because of its sustainability credentials. They're just better solutions. That's something that we're constantly in search of. When we bring anyone into Blue Earth as a Ventures member, we kind of look for three or four things. Is it better? Is it a better product or service than what already exists? Is it commercially viable? Is it better for the planet? And is there a team that knows what they're doing? And that's quite an intentional order. It's got to be better than what already exists. It needs to add up financially. Sustainability is kind of third on the list. Get those first two bits right. And then is there a team that can run through it? So I guess there was probably quite a lot of, going out to market with something that looks different, feels different, and then trying to explain to them that it's competitive on price. I've seen some of your brilliant kind of tests online where you're dropping bottles from like crazy heights and they're surviving it. I'm assuming, I'm sure you can kind of jump in here, that it performs better in every which way to a bubble wrap or I don't know what other options are out there.
So it's kind of bubble wrap offers great protection. We've tried to develop a product in the fiber-based space that has equal protection, and as you alluded to, we've to really test our products, we wrapped a bottle of fizz and dropped it from sort of 1, 2, 3, 4 meters onto concrete, and it survived. And we were amazed by the strength of honeycomb core, and kind of in the nature of honeycomb, bees create honeycomb because the strength of that kind of natural structure brings to a product. And when I've got one of the sleeves here just to kind of show you how it's made, but it's an open-ended sleeve, so you kind of have a product and it goes into that to protect it. And so that end-on kind of protection is really, really strong. That's I suppose the key to our design, but also the kind of volumetric. So if you're a 3PL and you have a box under these packing benches, you can have thousands of these under your packing bench, and it's very quick to kind of like expand and place over a product. Compared with bubble wrap, I think it's like 5 pallets of bubble wrap transfers to 1 pallet Flexi-Hex. Space is key, key for customers. It's key for 3PLs. It's expensive spaces. So if you can reduce the volumetrics of a product and still good protection, whilst being made from 100% recycled paper and curbside recycling, you start to tick a lot of boxes basically in what customers are looking for. And really brands, how do you kind of elevate that sort of consumer experience? How do you get people to kind of to make another purchase of a product and not to have that deflated sort of feeling when they open up the box and they have a small item rattling around in a box, or that Sam had where you're kind of you open up a product and it's lots and lots of kind of foam or plastic bubble wrap, which ultimately doesn't make you feel that good, because yes, you can get rid of it, but that it's either going to be incinerated or it's going to be buried in the ground and will last there for potentially thousands of years.
Yeah, and then with that actually, so that customer experience is so important, and that kind of there is a whole unboxing culture and packaging. I don't know, probably the best example is, I don't know, if you get an Apple product, a new laptop or a phone, like that experience of unboxing it is quite special. It's memorable, and I don't know, you actually end up keeping the packaging because there's so much has gone into it, and it feels pretty rare in the market. I don't know if you get something from Amazon, it's just a load of stuffed paper or bubble wrap, whatever it might be. But when I've received a product from Flexi-Hex, it's memorable. I've actually found myself keeping the packaging to reuse, and then there is a major differentiator. I don't know if this was intentional, but Flexi-Hex really feels like a brand. I remember it. It's a name that I remember. I can't remember. I don't know the name of any other packaging company. I'm sure there's an element of bias that I've been kind of watching you guys progress, but there is quite a prominent brand name that actually looks quite intentional. Did that come into it?
Yeah, it was a decision that both myself and Sam decided to put a stamp on the Flexi-Hex sleeve and also to build a brand. So although we're sitting kind of in a B2B business, we're actually also have a huge amount of support from consumers. And we probably were one of the first sort of packaging businesses to start building a brand in that space. Most packaging businesses are kind of like unbranded, it's sort of white labeled products, so you really don't know, where that packaging product is from. But actually, there's a whole story about, where does that product come from, what's the history of that product, where is it manufactured, how's it manufactured, and kind of like, we can kind of offer. And so therefore, when a customer kind of, or consumer opens a product, they can then say, oh wow, it's it looks good, it's packaged in Flexi-Hex, and I know about Flexi-Hex because they're B Corp, they're FSC accredited. And so there's, again, it's a kind of like, it's where sort of a brand cares for its products, and that sort of knock-on effect down to its customers. Although it's only slight, it's kind of like, it just means that customer then has a sort of feel-good feeling when they open that product, that that extra mile, they've gone the extra mile basically, and delivered their product in some nice packaging that is very easy to recycle.
Brilliant. And just to go back to kind of how Flexi-Hex is being used in the predominant sort of markets that you've been focused on. Obviously, it started in surfboards. For anyone listening that doesn't know, a surfboard is obviously a surfer's pride and joy, but they're also incredibly fragile, as fragile as glass, really. So that's obviously a good place to start, and that starts from your passion and you're solving an immediate problem. But I guess it was a good place to learn because it's a smaller market that's easier to penetrate. And then you mentioned you went into the kind of into the drinks space, which is obviously a huge market. How has the business evolved and kind of gone into new industries, and how do you approach each industry?
Again, I think from a sort of startup perspective, it was important that we didn't just kind of try to do everything for everyone. So it was really important that we kind of remain focused. So let's build a product to protect surfboards. Tick.
Yeah.
Customers buying it, it works. Let's now focus in another market sector, because we actually, when we first did that surfboard kind of product, we got it launched on a global website called Magic Seaweed, which is basically what surfers use to track waves around the world, and it has a global following. And we had an article on there, and we had hundreds and hundreds of emails come through from that kind of like article saying, can you package bicycles, can you package fruit, can you package, it was literally everything. And so it's like, we can give it a go. So and one of those was, can you package bottles? And so we knew that was a really good kind of like, the bottle drinks industry was a really good space to kind of challenge ourselves and to challenge the product. You basically got high-end products, that are kind of made of glass with an expensive liquid inside. Can we challenge ourselves to, make a product to protect those bottles? And that kind of led down to protecting one bottle. We came up with the concept and we thought, wow, this is going to, solve all our solutions. And then we realized that actually 3PLs needed to have really quick packing times. Our customers needed a quick, outer box. So we went through a series of kind of design reiterations on kind of boxes and kind of numbers that could fit in a box. So singles, doubles, triples, fours, sixes. So we now have a kind of a suite of products that, protects bottles. And that's where the majority, probably 70% of our revenue sits in that drink space, because we made, I suppose, a decision to go, okay, let's focus in on that industry. But excitingly, sort of off the back of that, we introduced a new product range, which is a much lighter weight product range called the Air range. And we have that in a number of different sizes. And that's really started to gain traction. So we work in this sort of health and wellness space, I suppose, anything from kind of like, anything really from sort of bottles, might be low to no alcohol kind of drinks, through to kind of jars of, potentially working with company that makes sea moss, which is like sort of sea algae full of nutrients, to kind of cosmetic space, consumer electronics. So this is one of our kind of our Air ranges. It's much sort of softer paper, and it's still offers amazing protection for kind of our customers, and that is it's a growing space. It's interesting that I think alcohol is, sales are kind of dropping in alcohol, but the people are more conscious about their health and their well-being, and so there is increased spending in kind of supplements, and it's nice for Flexi-Hex to kind of like to morphing more towards that kind of health and wellness space, because it's a big area with kind of lots of kind of glass glass jars and bottles that need protecting in transit. And also in that space as well, people, people are conscious about their health. So people buying the products are conscious about their health. They're aware of single-use plastic and potentially single-use plastic that ends up in your body, etc. The brands have to be shown to be packaging their products in the right products, and we offer that kind of, I suppose, elevated consumer experience that is made from 100% recycled paper.
Definitely, and there's so many brands out there now that are making big claims and big promises around how they are trying to clean up their supply chain, and packaging is one of, if not the most visible part of that. It's what it arrives in. That whole first impression piece is if they're a B Corp or they've made a big claim that they're going to reduce their carbon footprint and impact on the planet somewhere along the lines, and packaging is such an important and quite an easy fix, because there's companies like yourselves that are putting themselves forward, have created products and said, well, actually it's totally mad, you just shouldn't be using any plastic based packaging.
It is that first touch point, and as you alluded to, Apple do it extremely well, and we have the ability to kind of tailor products to have kind of printed boxes or printed sleeves, depending on what's kind of what the customer wants. But it is about kind of elevating that that consumer, that first touch point that consumer has on a product,
and is a big part of the game of trying to, once you win like a kind of credible client within a sector that sort of validates the fact that you've got a product that works and you can move at scale. Is that quite an important part? And I guess just touching on the drinks industry as the one that's got sort of 70% prominence in your business at the moment, was there a breakthrough moment where you landed a certain client and then you had a really good case study?
So we work with all the major kind of drinks players basically within the packaging industry, from sort of Bean, Suntory and kind of bigger. But there is I think it's the success stories, the case studies that does install confidence for a new brand that might be selling their bottles from sort of 30 to 60 or even more pounds. That is kind of like they have to have confidence that the product is going to be protected, and so the bigger brands that we work with definitely kind of installs confidence as we kind of grow. And it's nice for us to start using case studies like Lefroy that say, look, we've proved the concept, it works really well for them, and this is how it works, and it's good for us, and it means we can start to sort of build more and more traction in whichever space we're kind of starting to build sales in.
Yes. Okay, and then moving into the kind of business model, I guess it's a sort of low cost product and the whole game is volume. How do you approach the market? Are you going to clients like Lefroy on a direct B2B sale, or is there like a distribution model where there's some key players and you go to them and you buy all your packaging?
So we do work with packaging distributors. They hold some amazing big accounts, but ultimately we're putting the customer first. Like, how does the customer want to work? And sometimes they just want to work through a packaging distributor, and we work with all the major packaging distributors within the UK and Europe. We also have an amazing distributor in the US called Veritiv. So it's kind of putting the customer first, and sometimes there's some hand holding we need to do with our customers to kind of like get them across the line. But other times it's kind of like, working with our sort of, our distributors here in the UK, we can start to build some, and win some really amazing counts with them. So, we work in a number of different ways, but it is really putting the customer first and making sure that the kind of, I suppose, transition from whatever they were using to kind of Flexi-Hex is as seamless as we can make it. And it's a big decision it's a big decision for any customer to kind of pivot and change their packaging solution. And we have to be really aware of that. And how do we make that journey as seamless as possible? And I think that's part of the learning and part of the experience that we've had through kind of, bringing kind of some of these major brands into Flexi-Hex.
And how much are they kind of feeding back to you and giving you kind of ideas on what other spaces that you can go into? Are there any kind of big businesses that you work with that might, you say, like, well, great, we're using you for our bottles, and that's good, but if you could create this product and do that, then we would also take that off you. Or, we've got another part of our business that has these fragile items that we're constantly working with. Do you get quite a lot of kind of direct feedback that you can kind of react
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes, the ideas might, we use our experience to say, yes, that is a good option to go down. And other times it's maybe not. But one of the things we are really working on is kind of how do we make it more of a generic solution? Quite often a product is packaged in a kind of e-commerce box. It might come with some tissue paper, but they might have issues with kind of like breakages. So by pairing Flexi-Hex, placing the Flexi-Hex over the glass, whatever it might be, then pairing that maybe with a tissue paper wrap or some like tissue paper void fill, it makes it more of a generic kind of product. So, working with companies that might be selling sort of ceramics or kind of candles, and you've got a number of kind of different kind of fragile items that might go in one box, and how do you start to make it more of a general packaging product? So we've done quite a lot of work on, I suppose, fitting into, okay, I know how to use Flexi-Hex, I pair it with this and it works in this way. So although it's a really simple product, there's still some sort of hand holding and learning that needs to be done from the customer's perspective. And that's what we're trying to do, is make that step really, really easy.
Okay, nice. And so you've we talked about surfing into drinks, then there's the kind of the soft, which is more health and wellness. So you're in that industry now, and are there any other kind of product developments that you're working on, that industries that you're kind of moving into or coming down the track?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I can unveil that we have a really exciting kind of product that we are, I'd say, exciting in the packaging space, but it's corner and edge protection. So we have a patent pending on this product so we've created a similar concept to the sleeve. I actually have one here with me that I can show you, but basically it's kind of like, it's a corner that's very slim line that can protect corners. Now that's a big market area that is really dominated by plastics and foam. So if you've ever bought a kitchen before, a kitchen door probably has corner protections, but this has the ability to expand, which is kind of like, is really key in the market, that you could fit a kitchen work surface or a picture frame, or or anything much narrower. So we have a patent pending on this product, but this, I think, could be quite a game changer and really exciting kind of product that we're going to launch for Flexi-Hex. We will be launching it in the next probably 3 months, with sort of revenue due to come in Q4, which would be from kind of January onwards. But it's a very exciting product that it doesn't require, I suppose, the learning process for a customer. It's like, how does the Flexi-Hex sleeve work? How can we use it with other products? Like we've done a trial run now with a handful of customers, and these are big, these are big customers. These are 500,000 kind of orders per customer. It's like, when you send the product to them, they get it. They place it on the corner, it works, and it offers that protection, but it has that flexibility to expand over the different depth of the corner you're looking to protect. So, and it also pairs really nicely with Flexi-Hex sleeves as well, where you could, for example, in the art industry, where you need to protect a picture frame, you could use a sleeve around the whole picture frame, which we currently do, but you can now add these additional corners to offer that kind of additional protection. So it's a really nice pairing product, and it's we're super excited to have that kind of patent pending. And the patent process is quite long, but it's important for us, because it just, I suppose, puts in the mark in the sand to say, look, we've come up with this concept, and we know that it kind of is going to offer that protection that people need in that corner and edge protection.
Well, and also you're now sort of getting to a point where you've got a portfolio of products that kind of can solve a lot of problems. So if people come direct, and I imagine the big distributors that you work, in the UK, Europe, and the one that you mentioned in the US, kind of build out that portfolio of products with you, so that they can then offer it to their clients. So it's makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think this is where this is where working with packaging distributors, if we can, coming up with a concept like this is of real interest to the distributors. They have customers that are asking for paper-based sort of edge and corner protection, and if they can offer their customers new products, then it's really exciting for them, and obviously it's really exciting for Flexi-Hex and our kind of growth. And we feels we're entering into a kind of growth phase for Flexi-Hex. And I think I was talking to the team this morning, the kind of entering into a growth phase is very exciting. It just means you have to hold on tight. And I think use all your experience, use the experience that the team's had over the number of years to kind of, make sure the decisions we're making are the right ones, or certainly to the best of our ability to make sure that we, scale in a way that's manageable.
There is experience now. If you imagine, we do this often because we kind of went into the events world with Blue Earth with actually beautifully naively, just with a belief that there was a better way of running these events that are more engaging with more outcomes. With our own blinkers on, and traditionalists in the space are kind of looking at going, what on earth are you doing? But it takes sort of 4 or 5 years for people to kind of catch up, and now there's a kind of acceptance within what we're doing that it is better. It is different, but it's better. But I imagine it's very similar for yourselves as when you look back at 2017, where you just had a bit of an idea, you had probably no clue of how vast the packaging industry and how to approach it. And I'm sure there's been loads of mistakes along the way. I think they talk about you've got to make 51% of your decisions have got to be right, and you're on to a winner. So there's no doubt that there's lots of mistakes you make along the way, but then there's that learning, and you're just compounding and understanding the market. When you launch a new product, it's like, right, well, we've got the distribution, we understand the market, we know what would be the challenges that will come back to us with all the questions. You've got all the answers, and probably got a team that's like, well, I know what I'm doing. Leave me to it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And there'll always be the curveballs that kind of thrown your way, but I think it is having that team with kind of amazing kind of experience to help overcome that challenges. And we've got a brilliant commercial director, Bella Collins, who's kind of rode several oceans, and she's been really kind of pivotal for Flexi-Hex in both building the brand, but also kind of gaining the sort of the traction that we've had to date. Got amazing, supply chain team, Stuart Mansfield, like he's kind of working with our suppliers to be able to make sure that all our customers have, the product on time and when they need it. And the sales team. So it is kind of like, it is very much a kind of team effort. And we're very fortunate enough to kind of, to have that team.
Yeah. And where are you at, if you could kind of, and there's so many different ways of describing it, but where are you at as a business? Kind of, to give us kind of some context of kind of 2017 it was an idea that you went out and got patented, to where you are now with regards to clients, revenue, all that kind of stuff.
So we've proved the concept, people like it, they keep buying it, which is good. So we've kind of, I suppose, from a revenue perspective, we're turning over £1 million. We have kind of some building growth this year, but on a kind of product perspective, we sold over 3 million sleeves last financial year. So it's really it's kind of like, it's really nice to see that kind of like from selling our first box of 100 sleeves to the market, and then to be able to sell 3 million sleeves is quite kind of, and we're doing an investment round at the moment, and kind of in our pitch deck we've got the kind of number of sleeves we sold per year, but it's a really nice metric just to go, we're actually making a bit of an impact here, and to kind of reflect on that. It's really important. So it definitely feels like we're entering into a growth phase, and we're holding on tight, which is good. There's some really exciting opportunities that are coming in from the US, and say we've been working with our distributor Veritiv in the US that are a big player within the packaging space, and being hugely supportive of our kind of journey. And it takes a little time for kind of a new product like Flexi-Hex to kind of bed in with their sales team. But we've got some interesting opportunities that are kind of starting to sort of bear fruition. So we just watch this space. And within Europe as well, we've also got some interesting opportunities. So it's quite an exciting time for Flexi-Hex, and kind of like it'll start to sort of unravel in the coming maybe even weeks. So
nice.
With that, it's super exciting to get a sale of a product, and then it then comes down through the line. It's like, okay, this is how we're going to manufacture it, and all the kind of like the business challenges of kind of like growth. So yeah, it does feel like we've got this amazing team to be able to manage that stage of growth, and we're excited for this.
I love it. I can see in your facial expressions there's some big news that you're not quite going to say, but I'm sure by the time we put this out, we might be able to, add in an update. But that sounds good. Just touching on the funding side of things, how have you funded it? Because imagine there's quite a lot at the start that goes into R&D, then you're penetrating a market, and then you've kind of got you're growing a brand, and that doesn't. It's hard to start these businesses and be profitable from day one. So you do rely on investment to kind of get you to where you are now. So what's that funding journey been like for you? And then we'll come on to the upcoming round.
Yeah, so I mean, the packaging business is a numbers game. It's generally a sort of lower margin, lower margins but high volume. So we've had to sort of, I suppose, bridge that with investment rounds, and we have used a kind of number of kind of like investment sort of platforms from Crowdcube, which have been great. So we've got a huge amount of kind of supporters from Crowdcube. We've also got a number of kind of angel investors that have supported us on our journey. As I say, we're sort of entering into a growth phase, so we're kind of like starting to kind of move now into kind of a next investment round that is looking at kind of scale, and with that comes automation. How do we mass produce Flexi-Hex sleeves and mass produce potentially the corner bracket on a scale that is kind of like far exceeds what we currently do. So to manufacture 3 million sleeves in a year is achievable, but how do we manufacture 1 million sleeves in a week? And so, which is say good problems to have, and that's what that the next phase of investment is about. Really, it's about the growth of Flexi-Hex, and really kind of penetrating that packaging market with a product that is competitive in the packaging market, that we would hope is a no-brainer for people to switch from foams, bubble wrap and other sort of paper alternatives to Flexi-Hex.
Yeah. Okay. So you've a bit of crowdfunding, bit of angel investment. There is any institutional investors? I think I've done some work with Sky Ocean Fund. I know that's kind of gone in various different ways. But I did spot you on their portfolio. Did they get involved?
Yeah, they got involved early on, which has been great to kind of Jamie Rouse, and it's been great to have his support. And they've kind of, their portfolios kind of moved a couple of different times, but it's great to all the investors. It's kind of it's just amazing to kind of, obviously it's a sort of financial support for the business, but also there's just a wealth of knowledge within the investors, and we will use that kind of if they don't mind and are willing to kind of we will listen to sort of any advice they have, and kind of just to sort of guide us on our journey. They say we're the first company to be creating this kind of this product, and to sort of be building a new product in the packaging space. And anyone who's kind of been there and done it before, I'm all ears to understanding and just listening to advice and people who've been there and done it. So yeah, we do have an amazing kind of investor network, and that kind of investment and follow investment is crucial to our growth. And as I kind of alluded to, we've got some really exciting opportunities in the pipeline, and that kind of investment will pay dividends in the long run.
Yeah, I know Jamie very well. He's a very good guy, and to have his support and knowledge. I think he's now at Regenerate VC, right, which obviously kind of houses all of this. So that he's a pretty good guy to have in your corner. I know you've got lots of other investors, and I think if you get the right investors like that can kind of, they go well beyond just the cash. The cash gets you to a point, but actually running these companies can be a little bit lonely and terrifying at times. I know obviously you've got your twin brother, so I'm sure you guys can have pretty good heart to hearts, but then kind of making decisions and kind of leaning on experiences. I think where we get the most value out of our investors, I think we've got about 8. They've all exited their own companies. Is really when you've got they're most valuable when you've got a problem. How do I solve this? When you've got good people around the table, everyone's faced these problems. It's just and everyone there's different ways of approaching things, and it's that confidence to just go tackle things head on with some conviction that you've actually got some buy-in from a group of people that have an invested interest.
Yeah, exactly. And just to talk about other investors, so we've also got Cornwall Silly Investment Fund, the kind of local fund down here, and they've been really supportive on Flexi-Hex and our journey. And And kind of, I suppose, on that kind of metrics of support, it's nice to sort of just talk about the Flexi-Hex board. So we know we have quarterly board meetings, and we've got, a great board that kind of understand our journey and can help kind of, help with some of the bigger decision making that that we have to make as a company, and to make sure that as I say, it is the right decision for the company and also for the investors. So it's been really good to kind of have that board, and we've got people who used to work at Sealed Air, people who run events companies, and people who've exited their own companies, etc. So it's I suppose it's kind of like having that sort of early on we're probably a little bit hesitant about starting a board, but it's really important as we start to scale to have that, I suppose, governance around the business, to make sure that kind of we're running everything correctly. And it has been really good this since starting it.
And then just moving on to this next funding round, what sort of shape and size does that look like?
Yeah, so we're looking to raise 800. We have kind of half sort of verbally committed, and obviously working really closely with you guys. So yeah, we're excited about this round. It feels like we have a lot of momentum starting to build, and we'll start to kind of drip feed some of that as it starts to come out. Also, say, looking at kind of automation. What does automation look like for Flexi-Hex? And obviously, anyone in the packaging space or manufacturing space knows that automation is the key to kind of driving kind of efficiencies and margin, etc. So, our journey, we've proved this strange product we've come up with, and we started building numbers. Sold 3 million sleeves last year, but it's now that kind of, I suppose, it's moving into that growth phase, and you have to have the sales which are starting to come through, and then it's how do you manufacture at scale, etc. So yeah, it feels like a super exciting time for Flexi-Hex, and obviously any investor that's thinking about kind of looking to invest, we also sit with EIS, and if they're looking at kind of potentially impact investing, then I'm more than happy to have a conversation. Obviously, we're supported by you guys as well.
And that's kind of an interesting one. You've proven product market fit with Flexi-Hex and what it can do. You're now rolling out into different industries, and now the challenge is scale. I like what you said of you produced and sold 3 million sleeves last year, but what do you need to do 1 million a week? Which is an exciting, a different design brief, I guess. And just to kind of on that point, Flexi-Hex is obviously very mission led. Go hark all the way back to 2017. You just didn't like the fact that your surfboard arrived in bubble wrap, and you wanted to eliminate single-use plastic, and the amount of single-use plastic that you have kind of stopped from entering the system is insane. But is there like a big mission statement, sort of numbers wise? Is it that million sleeves a week that kind of you believe you can get to, or is there a kind of bigger mission and vision that sits behind the company that you're all gunning towards?
Yeah, there is, it is that kind of like, it is that mission to remove single-use plastic. And we used to track it. We still do track it. We used to track it sort of weekly, like how many sleeves we've sold to the equivalent of how many meters of bubble wrap. And I think we reached the United States of America, and then kind of like, we're still tracking it. I'm not quite sure where we are now. But, one of our sales team today, we've got this interesting opportunity in the US, and they're currently using a kind of plastic bubble wrap bag for their products, and we're likely to use Flexi-Hex sleeves. So he can wake up in the morning and know that he's making selling a product, but it's actually replacing single-use plastic with a product that is biodegradable, 100% sort of curbside recyclable, and made from paper. So there's definitely a positive element to making a sale, because that you're replacing something that's maybe not so good for the environment. I think with any startup, I think it is coming back. When you reach those really difficult times, it's coming back to why did we start Flexi-Hex? And scratching your head, and having just having that belief in what like we set out to achieve, and that really, I think, is the key to kind of like is that driving force in any startup. That's what I believe anyway.
Yeah, well, it's a nice, clean and simple mission statement, is to eliminate the need for plastic in packaging, and you're obviously doing an incredible job with that. I guess just kind of last bit, and then I want to move on to kind of some other bits that are inspiring you as well. It strikes me that in an industry like this, where you've got a lot of big players, you've got big distributors, that there is you are building a company that is very acquirable. Is that something that's kind of on your mind as an end goal, that actually we can build Flexi-Hex up? We've got these big distributors, because there comes a point surely that you become such a big account that it makes sense that they just bring Flexi-Hex in as an owned portfolio company. I have no idea, but that would be my assumption. Is that what happens in the market, and have you got half an eye on that as a future outcome?
Yeah, I mean, what we want is, for Flexi-Hex to be a globally kind of recognized brand within the packaging industry. And
Yeah.
there are some, big players in the industry have kind of been there and done that, and kind of like, whatever that might look like in the future. But we are kind of open to kind of future kind of partnerships, potential acquisitions. But it's about, I suppose, for us, our mission is to kind of like, to build Flexi-Hex and to make that impact, and then maybe the natural progression is that that people are keeping an eye on us, and they say these guys have really got something here, and it's kind of like at that point we can make a decision if it's the right decision to sell or not. But it is about kind of like really kind of, I suppose, staying true to ourselves and what we believe in our mission, and kind of the story will kind of unfold as we grow and develop as a company.
Yeah, I can really see that. You've got something that's very defendable. You've clearly shown product market fit. You're growing into new markets. You're now looking at pure growth, and then it feels as though that those opportunities will start coming in your direction as people want to kind of bring in and take on what you're doing. And then actually, if that can extend and increase the impact, then you guys will leave a pretty epic legacy, which you already have done a big part of. So I think, you've given such a brilliant explanation of kind of where it's come from. There's so much I love about Flexi-Hex. I love the origin story of, being surfers, being inspired to protect the ocean, coming up with a solution with your creative backgrounds, all the way down to the fact that you are mirror twins. You're the organized one, Sam's the creative one. That just sounds like the match made in heaven from a founder standpoint, to be able to work together like that and work to your strength, and then build out a team that's kind of learnt the industry and now is really scaling up. It is I've obviously known you guys for a little while and watched the progression. And it really does feel like you're at a very exciting point with Flexi-Hex that kind of is about to propel you. And you've alluded to some announcements, which we will definitely get behind as and when they come through. But absolute pleasure having you within our community, joining Blue Earth Ventures as a member. We don't let everyone in, and we genuinely want to find businesses that are transforming the way the world works by positively disrupting their industries. And I can't, the way that you guys are doing that in the packaging space is incredible. It's so easy for us to get behind and support. So it's brilliant to have you involved. Just to kind of wrap things up, and I'm really putting you on the spot like I do with everyone. I always ask, I like to end on someone else, and you've probably got lots of examples, and you're going to have to pick one because you work with so many different companies. But I always am interested in another founder or business that's really inspiring you by the work that they've done or are doing. Ideally, someone that's kind of in your world that you're close to, rather than sort of a kind of far-fetched figure.
Yeah, I think it's some amazing brands. If we probably pick a sort of a local brand to us and who's been probably on a similar journey, would be Tom from Finisterre. Creating a kind of a clothing brand, and it's kind of like I've definitely had a few heart-to-hearts with him, and he's been really supportive of kind of Flexi-Hex since we kind of founded it. And I think any founder, there's solace of speaking to another founder, really. It's kind of it's inspiring to see what Tom's done at Finisterre, and but there's so many amazing brands out there. But it is kind of I think it's just
very, very good pick. I know Tom very well. I've supported Finisterre on various funding rounds, and he is so keen and willing to support anyone that's doing good with their business. I'm sure we've had similar heart-to-hearts, and he, fellow surfer. I've been on a few surf trips with him over the years. But what he's built with Finisterre is incredible, and that's very similar to yourself. A totally values-driven business that's ended up kind of rising to the top, and very much deservedly so. And I think there's a very, very long-term future for both yourself with Flexi-Hex and Tom at Finisterre, and it's so exciting to see. And we're very proud to do our bit just to support in the little bits that we do. But yeah, congratulations on everything you've done so far. Exciting times ahead. We can't wait to continue to champion you in everything that you're doing, introduce you to investors for this current round, potential partners, commercial partners going forward, and keep sharing the good news that's going to consistently flow out of Flexi-Hex. So yeah, thanks for everything you're doing.
Brilliant. Thanks, Guy. Yeah, and we really appreciate your support with Blue Earth Ventures as well. So yeah, no, excited to see how it all unfolds.
Nice one. Cheers, Will.
Yeah, cheers, Guy. Bye.